dugsiga boardingka iyo maalinlaha ah ee Amano Boarding and Day School.
Assalamu alaikum. This teacher Abdullah is saying to you, peace be upon you. For my students, inshallah, we will be continuing our lesson. We were in the last chapter, the Greek Empire. So today our topic is decline and fall of Greece. So the topic that we are discussing today is the ending of the Greek civilization. What were the reasons behind the decline and fall of Greece? So let us go to our lesson directly. First, we have to talk about the decline and fall of Greece. That's generally our title. We know we have discussed about the most powerful empire of the world during the time of the Greeks was Persian Empire. We have discussed how the Persians and Greeks fought one another, and how finally the Greeks were able to get rid of the Persians, and how the Persians failed to conquer all of Greece. That is the previous topic. It was called Persian Wars. So ancient Greece was one of the dominant civilizations in the Mediterranean and the world for hundreds of years. The ancient Greek was ruling the world for a lot of years, hundreds of years. Like all civilizations, however, ancient Greece eventually fell into a decline and was conquered by the Romans in new and rising world power. So, even as you can see from here, the fall of Greek was mainly caused by another empire that became more powerful than them, and that empire was called the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire was the one behind the decline of ancient Greek. Okay. Alexander the Great. What do you know about Alexander the Great? Alexander the Great is regarded as one of the greatest leaders that ruled in the Asian world. Alexander the Great was born in a city called Pella. He was born in a city called Pella. And Pella was in Macedon. Macedon is now in the northern Greece. So Alexander the Great, he was the son of a father of a man or a leader called Philip II. So Philip II, he was ruling Macedonia. He wanted to conquer all of Greece, and he united Greece. And then when he died, his son became the leader of Macedonia. So his father was able to conquer all of Greece, and he united Greece. So Alexander, when his father was assassinated, he became the leader at the age of 20. So inshallah, we will look into Alexander the Great, how he united all Greece, how he was able also to conquer all of Persia. Okay. So years of internal wars weakened the most powerful Greek city-state of Sparta and Athens, Thebes and Corinth. We have talked about that Sparta and Athens, generally they were always in an internal wars, civil wars. They used to fight one another. And even we have talked about the civil wars between Sparta and Athens. It was called Peloponnesian War. It was going on almost 27 years. So Philip II of Macedon, Philip II of Macedon, rose to power, and in 338 BC he rode south and conquered the cities of Thebes and Athens, uniting most of the Greece under his rule. So Philip II first, he was able to rule Macedonia, and then he wanted to also consolidate his power to the rest of Greece. For that reason, he started to conquer the Greek city-states one by one. He was able to conquer Athens and most of the Greeks. Okay, and his main vision was to conquer at the same time all of Persia. And Persia at that time, it was the superpower of the world. So now the question is, will he be able to conquer Persia? Okay. Upon Philip II's death, Philip II was finally murdered. And then his son Alexander the Great became the leader. Alexander the Great became the leader. At that time he was just Alexander, and when he became the leader of Macedon, he was just 20 years old. So he took control. Alexander was a great general. He proceeded to conquer all of the lands between Greece and India, so even including Egypt. So now when Alexander was crowned to become the king of Macedon, the other Persian cities like Thebes and Athens, they saw him at 20 years old not to be able to rule this vast land. So they started, a rebellion against him. But he proved himself to be very decisive, and he was able to defeat his enemies from the rest of Greece. And then he once again united all Greek after his father was dead, and then he embarked on to conquer all of Persia. So there will be wars between Alexander from the Greeks and Persians, 3 different wars, and we shall see them. Okay, so now Alexander, he proceeded to conquer all of the lands between Greece and India, including Egypt. So now after Alexander died, Alexander, he was ruling, he was ruling almost 12 years. He was the emperor, and in 12 years he conquered a land that was stretching almost 3,000 miles, and he was able to conquer all of Persia. He was able to conquer all of Persia. And Persia, they fought Persia 3 different wars, okay? The wars that they fought, one was called Cucamela, another one was called Isas, another one was called, Granicus. So all the 3 wars that Alexander fought against the Persians, he was able to defeat all of them. And then, the Persian leader at that time was called Darius the Great. So Darius the Great, even he fled for his life after he saw his army were defeated by Alexander the Great. And Darius the Great, eventually he will be captured, and even himself, he died and he was killed. So then Alexander the Great, he did not stop there. He went as far as India, and then finally his army, they refused to continue fighting, because the fight, he was non-stop fighting for almost a lot of years, almost 10 years. And then finally he decided to come back. So while he was on the way and coming back, finally he rested in Babylon. And while he was in Babylon, now it's in Iraq, this is what happened. He became sick, and he was sick almost for 10 days. He had a very strong fever. So they say he died because of that fever. That's what we can simply say. But most of the historians, they also say he died, some they say he died from malaria, some they say he died from typhoid. But the common thing that they agree is that he died because of a very high fever that continued for almost 10 days. And then when he died, a very big problem arose. That is, who is going to be the leader of Asia and Greek. So now when Alexander the Great died, there was a huge gap in power. He left a land that was stretching almost 3,000 miles. So it was absolutely very big. So now let us see. When Alexander the Great died, there was a huge gap in power. Alexander's empire was divided among his generals. So his generals, generally, they divided the empire into 4 big empires. So now Alexander's generals, they divided the empire. This new division is soon began fighting. Although the Greek culture had spread throughout much of the world, it was politically divided. So they say, when a strong leader is gone, then his empire also goes with him. So that's the saying we are going to be using here. When Alexander was gone, his empire did not continue long. Okay. So now let us talk about the term called Hellenistic Greece. So what is Hellenistic Greece? The period of Asian Greece after Alexander the Great is called Hellenistic Greece. This is what Hellenistic is. The period after Alexander the Great is called Hellenistic Greece. So before, there is also another period called Hellenic also, and that one is the vice versa of this one. So Hellenic period is the period, during the time of rule of Alexander and before him. So, but the time after, Alexander the Great, it's called Hellenistic. It is called Hellenistic Greece. It is called Hellenistic Greece. So during this time, what happened during the Hellenistic period when Alexander was gone? The city-states of Greece fell into decline. the real centers of Greek culture moved to other areas in the world, including the cities of Alexandria, Antioch, Turkey, and Ephesus, also in Turkey. So when Alexander the Great was gone, we said his empire also declined with him, but the culture of Greek really survived. And then the culture of Greek, went into the other parts of the world. For example, in Egypt. And you have to understand, Alexander the Great, during his time, he founded a lot of cities, almost 70 different cities in the different places he was ruling. One of the cities that still exists is the city in Egypt called Alexandria. He was the one who named it after his name. And Alexandria now is the second biggest city in Egypt. So the Greek culture moved into the rest of the world, to Egypt and at the same time to Turkey. So the rise of Rome. Now there will be another empire that is going to rise, and that empire is called Rome. Or in another word, we can say the Roman Empire. So while the Greeks were in decline, a new civilization in Italy rose to power. You have to understand that when a civilization becomes very, very, very powerful, finally it declines. We talked about the Persia. It was the most powerful, then it finally came to an end. And then we talked about, the other empire. Now the Greek is going to decline. So as Rome grew more powerful, the Greeks started to see Rome as a threat. In 215 BC, parties of Greece allied with Carthage. Carthage was also a city in Morocco against Rome. Rome declared war on Macedonia, and Macedonia was the place that the Greek civilization first started. So they defeated Macedonia at the Battle of Cynosphile in 197 BC, and then again at the Battle of Pydna in 168 BC. So Macedonians and Romans, they fought one another at these two different battles, and both of them, Macedonians, they defeated Macedonia. Macedonia was finally defeated. Okay. So there is also another battle called the Battle of Corinth. So Rome continued this conquest of Greece after they conquered Macedonia. So the Greeks were finally defeated at the Battle of Corinth in 146 BC. So finally, the Battle of Corinth was the deciding battle for all the Greeks to be conquered in 146 BC. Rome completely destroyed and plundered the city of Corinth. Why? As an example for the other Greek city-states. So after Rome and Corinth fought at 146 BC, and Corinth was one of the major city-states in Greek, Corinth was finally defeated by Rome at this time, 146 BC. So that it becomes a lesson for the other states like Sparta, Athens, Thebes, Argos. What did they do? They completely destroyed the city, and at the same time, they also murdered a lot of population in there. So from this point, the Greek was ruled by Rome. Okay, despite being ruled by Rome, but the Greek culture survived. The culture of Greek was not the one who did not end. The culture of Greek remained the same and had a heavy influence on the Roman culture. Okay, so now this is the main causes of decline in short. The first one, we said that they were divided. The Greek was divided into city-states. That's the main reason why they declined. The second reason why they declined was, as you can see from here, the second reason why they declined, the first one, we said the Greeks were divided into different city-states that warred one another. And the other one is the poorer classes also in Greece began to rebel against the aristocracy and the wealthy. We talked about, the wealthy people were always in power in Greece, so the poor classes, they did not get most of the privileges the upper class were getting. So finally, there was a clash, upper and lower class. And then the last one was the city-states of Asian Greece had different governments and were constantly changing against their alliances. One example is, for example, Athens was democracy and Sparta was dictatorship. For that reason, they were having different kind of rule. Greek colonies also had a similar culture, but were not strong allies to the Greeks or any of the Greek city-states. Okay. The last point today in our lesson is the part you we are supposed to be reading interesting facts about the decline. So you will be able to read this part, inshallah. When you are watching, read it. This is just a summary, and then this is your question is, you take this as an assignment. Write down the biography of Alexander the Great from the time he was born to his death. You have to write biography of Alexander the Great from the time he was born to his death. So that is for all today. Stay at home, stay safe. I hope you understand. Assalamu alaikum.